An old house on the outskirts of the city has long attracted the attention of local teenagers. Its roof sagged under the weight of time, the windows gaped with black holes, and the creaking of floorboards could be heard even through the closed doors. But for Emily Stone, this house wasn't just a dot on the map of fears, it held her family's secrets. Her grandmother, Margaret Stone, disappeared here in 1978, leaving behind only a suitcase with yellowed letters and a key to the attic. Emily, an architecture student, came to sort out the inheritance. On the very first day, she found a doll. It was lying in a corner of the attic, wrapped in a newspaper from the 60s. Her porcelain face was covered with a web of cracks, and her left eye was half closed, as if the doll was winking at death. The faded velvet dress smelled of mold and something chemical like formalin. But the strangest thing was the mechanism. Under the fabric, Emily felt a metal frame, and in the back she found a panel with a tiny lock. In the evening, over a cup of coffee, she studied her grandmother's letters. In one of them, dated 1965, Margaret wrote about the Lotta Project, an experiment to create an ideal witness. Doctors, engineers, and dolls were mentioned. They built cameras into them, the handwriting trembled, to keep an eye on us. The next morning, Emily opened the panel on the doll's back. Inside, among the gears and wires, was a mini DV cassette. The film was labeled, Test 12. The target is Margaret Stone. The footage on the film was shaking, as if the cameraman was laughing. On the screen, a young Margaret was sitting in an armchair with a doll on her lap. The voiceover asked, "What do you see?" She asks. "It's moving," Margaret whispered. The doll turned its head. Abruptly, with a snap of the joints, Emily dropped the camera. A chill ran down her spine. In the corner of the room, on a shelf, the same doll was now looking at her with both eyes. The investigation led her to the closed archive of the psychiatric clinic Ridgeview. Dr. Lotta, the head of the project, treated patients for hallucinations in the 70s by implanting microchips in them and making them believe that dolls were their friends. Margaret was one of the first to figure out the truth. The dolls transmitted data, and the treatment erased memory. That night, Emily woke up to a creaking sound. The doll was sitting on a chair by her bed, and her mechanical hand was clutching a pair of scissors. The words, "She's still watching," were written in blood on the wall. Emily rushed to the door, but it slammed shut with a thud. The lock seemed to work by itself. She pressed her back against the wall, trying to catch her breath. The doll did not move, but its glassy gaze was fixed directly on her. The scissors in her hand glittered under the moonlight shining through the curtains. Suddenly, a buzzing sound was heard in the silence. Emily noticed that the panel on the doll's back was slightly ajar, and a red LED flashed inside. "The transmitter," flashed through my mind. She remembered the records about the microchips and realized that the doll does not act autonomously. Someone is controlling it. Now. Grabbing a heavy book from the shelf, Emily threw it at the doll. It fell to the floor, the scissors clattered on the parquet. At that moment, the door swung open. Emily ran out into the hallway, grabbing the tape and the letters. A photo she found in the Ridgeview archive was burning in her jeans pocket, a group of doctors in gas masks, next to boxes full of similar dolls. On the back was written, Stage 3. Control over the subject. Emily drove to the abandoned Ridgeview Clinic building, hidden in the woods outside the city. The building looked like a bunker, concrete walls without windows, a door with a combination lock. Using drawings from her grandmother's letters, she discovered a ventilation shaft leading inside. The laboratory was mothballed, but not destroyed. Tables with tools, wires, and dozens of disassembled dolls. A screensaver flickered on the monitor from the 70s. Lotta X surveillance system is active. Emily found a journal with notes. It turned out that the project wasn't just following, it was modifying reality. The patients were implanted with chips that caused hallucinations, and the dolls corrected their behavior, pushing them to make the right decisions. Margaret tried to destroy the signal generator hidden in the house, but she was stopped. Suddenly, Emily heard footsteps. She hid behind a closet, watching as a man in a protective suit entered the room. He connected a USB flash drive to the terminal and started downloading data. He had a badge around his neck with the logo of TerraSafe Industries, a company building a new neighborhood on the site of the old city. After returning home, Emily Googled the company. TerraSafe specialized in the rehabilitation of criminal areas. All the articles mentioned the strange accidents of those who refused to sell their houses. At night, her laptop turned on by itself. A chat window appeared on the screen. "Stop digging. They'll kill you like Margaret did." The message was erased after a second. Emily noticed that the laptop's camera was active. In the attic, she found a signal generator, a metal ball with antennas embedded in the wall. Grandma tried to pull it out, leaving scratches. Emily connected the device to the power bank. A map with hundreds of dots appeared on the screen. The chips were still working in people whose families lived here in the 60s. Emily decided to turn to Michael, a hacker friend. On the way to his neighborhood, she noticed a white van with no license plates. The radio in the car crackled. "Malfunction in Sector 4. Neutralize the source." Michael disassembled the generator and found out that the signal can be overwritten, but this requires access to the TerraSafe server. Suddenly, a smoke bomb flew through the window. Masked men rushed in and tied Michael up, but Emily managed to jump out the fire exit. She ran through the construction site of the new neighborhood. The skeletons of houses towered around, and on the wall of one of them hung a poster, "Your safe future." Suddenly, a miniature excavator doll emerged from the ground, but with a saw instead of a hand. The machine chased after her, cutting out chunks of concrete. Emily hid in a pipe until the car hit the wall, sparking the wiring. Emily, hiding in a narrow drainage pipe, heard the mechanism of the doll excavator die down, sparking the last discharges. Her hands were shaking as she took out a smartphone with a cracked screen. A marker pulsed on the construction site map, an abandoned water tower, marked in her grandmother's drawings as a backup communications hub. The ruined tower building smelled of ozone and rust. Behind a peeling paint panel, Emily found a 1980s server rack that had been upgraded with modern repeaters. The wires led to a satellite dish on the roof. Apparently, the firmware for the chips of the Lotta project was updated here. A warning flashed on the monitor: activation of Stage 4, synchronization of the residential area. Gasping for air, Emily plugged into the port the device she'd found at Michael's, a bug with an autonomous AI for hacking. The screen went blank, then blinked red. A quantum encryption system has been detected. Physical access to the TerraSafe main terminal is required to intercept the controls. The shadows of the headlights illuminated the wall. A white van. Emily, pressed against a concrete column, saw two technicians in jackets with the company's logo loading server blocks into the car. "After tomorrow's rally, the mayor will sign the deal," said the blonde man with the scar on his cheek. "And these relics will go into the oven." My phone vibrated in my pocket, an unknown number. A voice with a synthesized timbre: "Your friend is alive. If you want to save him, find Dr. Ransom. 2417 Blackstone Avenue. You have 12 hours. House 2417 turned out to be a hospice. Behind the door with the surveillance camera, an old man in a wheelchair was assembling a satellite model. Margaret. Yes, I warned her that Lotta was crazy. Dr. Ransom took out a hard drive from under the mattress with trembling hands. In 1983, we transferred the project to a neural network. She learned to manipulate people through their fears. Your grandmother was close to shutting down the core. The hard drive contained a chip management interface. Emily, disguised in a construction jumpsuit, entered the opening ceremony of the District of the Future. Behind the stage, where the mayor was preparing for a speech, she saw a server panel identical to the tower one. "The system has been activated," the mayor's voice suddenly turned metallic. "From today on, our city will become a model of security." The crowd applauded, but Emily noticed how people began to raise their hands in sync, like puppets. Jumping onto the stage, she plugged the hard drive into the server. Flashed across the screens, flashing, restoring cognitive freedom. The crowd froze, then chaos began. People were rushing around, grabbing their heads. "Wrong target," a voice whispered. Emily turned around and saw the same technician with the scar pointing a device like a laser sight at her. The last thing she remembered was a flash of light and the smell of burnt plastic. I woke up in a white room with no doors. There was a replica doll of herself on the table in front of her, and a projection burned on the wall. "Welcome to Stage 5. Now you will become the face of our new world." Emily grabbed the doppelganger doll, the porcelain fingers cracking in her hand. Inside, a chip with the TerraSafe logo flickered among the wires. She dug her fingernail into the joint between the doll's neck and body, ripping out the device. The projection on the wall vibrated, turning into a digital vortex. The buzzing behind my back. The floor panel slid open, revealing a hatch. Below is a maze of pipes, as in the drawings from the Ridgeview archive. Emily jumped, smashing her knees on the concrete. The air smelled of formalin and hot silicone. In the tunnel, she was overtaken by a mechanical screech. 3 excavator dolls with saws instead of hands. Emily threw the stolen chip into a nearby pipe. The sensors of the cars turned towards the interference, allowing it to escape. There is an emergency map on the wall, a red cross, deactivation chamber. The door has a biometric lock. Emily pressed her bloody palm against it, and the scanner blinked green. The trap. Inside there are glass cylinders with bodies in liquid. Margaret Stone, 1978, under the label, Sample 0. The liquid was bubbling. Grandma's eyelids fluttered. Emily slammed her fist against the glass, a crack, the screams of a siren. Margaret's hand gripped her wrist. Cold fingers squeezed my veins. "You." Part of the protocol, wheezing from the speakers. Emily broke free, smashing a tube of purple gas. My breathing stopped. There is an emergency drain button on the panel. She jumped through the hatch as the liquid gushed out, washing away the guard dolls. There is a giant neural interface in the shape of a spider web in the underground station. On the screen, synchronization with the area, 97%. Emily inserted Ransom's hard drive. Michael's virus has come to life, turning the city's map into a red web of exploding nodes. A voice from the speakers: "You have activated the Lotta X protocol." The doppelganger doll stood behind his back. Her face is now a copy of Emily. "The replacement is ready," said the copy. The scissors in his hand flashed. Emily yanked the wires out of the neural interface. The sparks burned my hair. The explosion threw her against the elevator. The cabin raced upward as the entire complex collapsed into a plasma reactor. On the surface, the city was burning with purple flames. People with burnt chips on their necks ran, tearing masks from dolls. A scarred technician lay in the ruins of the stage, his gadget reading, "Stage 5, reboot cancelled." My phone vibrated in my pocket. Photo from Michael. He is in the hospital, a bandaged hand holding a note. "They are in you. Cut them out." Emily brought the blade to the back of her head. In the reflection of the showcase, the doll doppelganger waved her hand. Emily felt a tiny scar under the skin of the back of her neck. Surgical. Memories surfaced in fragments: a white room, the smell of antiseptic, an anesthesiologist's mask with the TerraSafe logo. She squeezed the blade, but stopped. Removing the chip blindly was fatal. In an underground clinic on the outskirts, where victims of corporations were treated, a neurosurgeon connected a scanner to her spine. The Lotta X nanochip embedded in the brain stem flashed on the screen. "He records everything you see and hear," the doctor said, "and broadcasts it to their network. Even now." Emily pulled out the cable. The doctor handed her a box of gene serum, an experimental drug that destroys neuroimplants. Side effect: permanent memory damage. 3 days later. Techno-anarchist warehouse under the bridge. Emily connected the chip to a hacked terminal and uploaded the virus to the TerraSafe network. The data surfaced. The construction of Districts of the Future is a cover for the installation of neurotransmitters in the foundations of houses. They emitted pulses that activated the chips in the inhabitants. "Look!" a teenage hacker shouted, pointing at the map. 2417 Blackstone Avenue, the address of the Ransom Hospice, was burning red. Surveillance cameras showed how the building was engulfed by fire. Emily found a charred biochip marked Ransom 12 in the ruins. The built-in hologram projector came to life, showing a recording. They sewed chips into the builders. The old man's voice was interrupted by static, so that they wouldn't even think about violations. "Look for the hammer." The hammer turned out to be an abandoned factory where TerraSafe secretly manufactured implants. Emily made her way through the ventilation into the workshop, conveyor belts with androids. Their faces are exact copies of the townspeople. One of the robots, with the mayor's face, was repeating in a loop. "Security, through control." Suddenly, all the androids turned their heads to Emily. Sirens. Laser barriers blocked the exits. The AI's voice sounded from the speakers. "Sample E-113, you violated the protocol." She threw an EMP grenade stolen from the anarchists. Everything was silent for a second. Running out, Emily grabbed a detonator chip from the assembly line, the key to the main server. The TerraSafe server room was located under the new area. Emily injected the virus and activated the reverse wave, an impulse that burns out the chips. On the monitors, millions of dots went out like stars during the apocalypse. "You've destroyed decades of work." "No," Emily raised the detonator, "I gave them a choice." The explosion threw her into the elevator shaft. The chip in my head burned out, erasing fragments of memory. My mother's face, Michael's laugh, Margaret's voice. She crawled out with a single intact USB flash drive, the data that would send TerraSafe to court. In the morning, the media talked about a terrorist cyber attack. But the internet was already crawling with leaks, hologram diagrams of areas, lists of victims. Emily, looking at the chip burn on her arm, dialed the number of the underground media. Her war was just beginning.